the calf kick might be the most effective weapon in a UFC fight.
I've never felt more pain during the act of fighting than when my leg got kicked by Jim Miller over and over again that night in New York.
But it just sunk into the muscle at the front and it was badly compromised.
Where the nerve gets shut off and they can't, my foot, I rolled it like 8 times since when he kicked it into the end of the fight. I rolled it so many times.
It can destroy an opponent's movement, force them to switch stances, and sometimes stop them from even standing up properly. But if you were to rewind just a handful of years, the calf kick didn't exist in MMA at all.
Which is crazy. I can't think of a single technique that revolutionized the sport that way.
Right.
They didn't exist even when I was fighting. I've never taken a calf kick. I have no idea what they feel like. They look like they hurt.
So where did the calf kick come from? Who uses it best? And why did it take so long to become a mainstream technique? From the inception of MMA until fairly recently, a low kick or a leg kick would exclusively refer to the thigh. It's a bigger muscle, supposedly an easier target, and was just the way things were done. Edson Barboza has thigh kick TKOs on his record. Much of Jose Aldo's success was due to a devastating thigh kick, and it'll always be a viable option. The idea of kicking someone's calf wasn't even something fighters, commentators, or even fans had considered. But nowadays, the calf kick has taken over the entire sport.
It is now becoming the ultimate calf kicking championship. If you start dropping those calf kicks, the other guys fucked.
With there being much less bone and muscle on the shin in comparison to the thigh, it only takes a few strong kicks for the damage to show.
We're attacking this meaty part of the leg that actually isn't so meaty compared to up here. Our thighs are pretty conditioned to take those kicks. You've been doing them if you've been training Muay Thai, kickboxing, MMA. Almost everyone's throwing the kicks here, so we're used to getting hit there and we know how to brace for them. However, when we're getting hit right here on this outside of our leg, it's not fun and the leg's just not conditioned.
The calf kick is arguably harder to defend, easier to land, and easier to stay safe while throwing it rather than a traditional low kick.
It is, man, and it doesn't take many, and it doesn't take as much commitment. You know, a thigh kick, you're turning your hips over, Muay Thai style. You're really set in your position, whipping. This calf kick, you can flick. You know, you can flick it like a jab and just catch the top of the calf, and it's...
And especially from a striker's point of view, there's almost zero risk of an opponent catching the calf kick and taking them down afterwards, whereas the same can't be said for a thigh or body kick. But most importantly, kicking the calf is significantly more effective.
He probably landed about 4 or 5, and I remember thinking, like, what is he doing? He's missing my thigh.
Right.
But then I remember, like, kind of moving around in the second round, like, holy shit, this is cramping up really bad. And luckily I got him out of there.
The extra damage slows down an opponent's movement almost immediately, forces them into swapping stances, and reduces their power as they can't push off a compromised leg as easily. And psychologically, it makes fighters hesitant to throw their own offense and focus solely on defending the calf kick coming their way, just like when Alex Pereira KO'd Yuri Prochaska.
I saw that he was too focused on not taking that kick, and he was keeping his hands down and leaving the head, you know, the head exposed. So I told him, I'm going to explore the high kick.
But aside from the pain and swelling, there's another rare but potentially fight-ending impact from a calf kick, the dreaded drop foot. If the calf kick lands in exactly the perfect location behind the knee, it hits the peroneal nerve and essentially shuts off the fighter's control of their own foot.
So whenever that kick comes in, it's essentially landing right in this area, and so not only is it targeting that common peroneal nerve, it's also going to be targeting some of that tibial nerve. That common peroneal nerve wraps around the outer portion of the leg to divide into the deep and the superficial peroneal nerves that in particular go on to control a muscle that picks the foot up, called the tibialis anterior. When that nerve gets kicked or damaged or crushed, you lose control to that tibialis anterior muscle, and that's why you can't pick your foot up.
They won't be able to lift it up properly and will end up quite literally stumbling over their own feet. It doesn't matter how tough a fighter is or how determined they are, a kick to that nerve is like clicking the magic button that turns a fighter's leg off. And speaking of clicking the magic button, over 90% of our viewers aren't subscribed, so if you want to make our day, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be posting twice as often from this video onwards, and every new subscriber helps us to continue growing the channel, so thank you. We appreciate you. And because of all those previously mentioned reasons, the calf kick has been the deciding factor countless times and has even been pivotal to some of MMA's biggest moments. So if it's such a devastating technique, why did it take so long to get into MMA? Well, while fighters threw a calf kick even in the early days of the UFC, no one used it as a consistent method of attack until 2015, when former lightweight champion Benson Henderson made it part of his arsenal.
For me, I'm pretty sure it was Benson Henderson.
Oh, of course, he was one of the early guys.
Yeah, he was one of the first guys I saw use it. But it didn't seem as effective.
And it didn't take off overnight.
No.
It wasn't, because I remember seeing Benson doing it, and I used to think, oh, what's he doing? Because he never, because I've had people throwing weird kicks at me over the course of my career. I'm like, stop doing that shit, please.
But Florida's American top team laid claim to the calf kick many years before that. One of the gym's striking coach, Katie Cubis, said he learned about the calf kick in 2009 from a Brazilian coach he once had, with that coach discovering it from a group of Muay Thai fighters in the 1980s. And while it sounds like he knew a guy who knew a guy, a former UFC American top team fighter called Wilson Gouveia dismantled an opponent with calf kicks all the way back in 2012, despite being more of a grappler on paper.
Not only offensively, but defensively. Outside leg kick from Gouveia. Still Lewis with that check to kick. But that's hurting Lewis's leg now. You can see him limping. He's going to hinder his punches. Well, Lewis is definitely hurt now. You can see him grimace on that last one. Yeah, I think the fibula may be injured. Gouveia doing a number on that lead shin. It is time for Dwayne Lewis to pull out the stops. Whatever's holding him back, he's got to get through it. He's got to go now, Pat. Yeah, he does, but he can't overextend on his punches at the same time. That leg is beaten!
And presumably from there, as MMA fighters trained in different gyms, met different people, and word got out, the calf kick slowly began to spread across the entire sport. Now, almost every fighter in the UFC throws calf kicks. It feels that being prepared for it both offensively and defensively is almost as important as knowing how to defend a takedown. But some are far, far better than others. When a fighter signs on the dotted line against guys like Alex Pereira, Justin Gaethje, and Dustin Poirier, they'll know calf kicks are coming their way. And the wildest thing is, fighters don't need to put 100% of their effort into the kick. Even just a fraction of the power can have the intended effect.
Okay. Yeah. That's why we choose always wrestle takedown.
The biggest victory of Poirier's career against Conor McGregor was, in large, due to his low-kicking prowess.
Jesus Christ, that's my first time to experience that, so but one of them sunk in early, and Thiago said that was a good one. And I was in my head thinking, yeah, bastard, it was a good one. And then it just started accumulating up, and southpaws and that back kick wrapping around the front part of the muscle on that low leg is something that I must adjust to. So it's a very interesting kick. Same stance, opposite stance, it's nothing. But the outside one's wrapping around, and even though I felt like I turned the leg out, checked it, and you have to almost turn it right out, and it has to hit the bone, it can't hit the muscle.
But Dustin's also been on the receiving end numerous times, with both Gaethje and Jim Miller tearing up his lead leg.
But I've never felt more pain during the act of fighting than when my leg got kicked by Jim Miller over and over again at that night in New York. My calf was in so much pain. I was surprised at how much pain I was feeling even between rounds when I was trying to listen to my corner. They were icing my leg. It was one of the most painful things that I've been through in a fight, and I've had my nose crushed in a fight and fought another 10 minutes and won the fight. I've had cracked hands. The list goes on of things that's happened to me in fights and injuries, but the calf kick was one of the most painful things I've ever felt.
Thankfully for Dustin though, his peroneal nerve wasn't hit at any point, but not everyone has been so fortunate.
His big toe literally pushed a button. My peroneal nerve pushed a button and my foot just fell asleep. But before that, I was kicking him. I kicked him so hard he spun around. I was kicking his legs way harder than he was kicking mine. I was out striking him. I don't think he punched me in the head once until the whole thing. And then I blitzed forward and I went to step back and my foot just wasn't there. He got on top, elbowed me. It's a loss on the record. But I don't feel like it wasn't like I didn't go in there and lose because his skills were better than me.
There's many fake martial arts out there claiming to know pressure points that can temporarily paralyze people. I'm sure you've seen the videos, but the peroneal nerve is actually one that feels fake but is entirely real. O'Malley, Henry Cejudo, Michael Chandler, and so many more have dealt with drop foot mid-fight, and more often than not, it'll result in them losing almost immediately.
The ref stopped the fight, because of the severity of how bad the injury looked.
And it can take days for the foot to come back to normal.
My brain was telling me to take a step, but my foot can't do this.
We've got enough data now to know that the calf kick is one of the strongest weapons in MMA today from a risk versus reward standpoint. I'm sure fighters are desperately working on a foolproof defense, but until then, expect to see a lot more swollen calves in MMA.